A C-section was done, so how did my baby still suffer an HIE injury at birth? This was a question that I got offline, and I had an opportunity to talk to a particular person on about this issue. And I want to shoot a video and talk with you about this because this is something that is extremely important. And I know if this person had this question, then I'm sure there are other people out there who has this question also. So first of all, let's step back. Let's jump back and let's define some terms. I used that term HIE earlier. If you're new to my page, then you know what HIE is. But for those who are just starting this journey and you have questions about this HIE issue, HIE is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and in our context, it's going to be a reduction in oxygenated blood, which can lead a baby to suffer a traumatic brain injury. And to be able to discuss this further, I'm going to give you two examples as to how we see this issue come up when there has a C-section has been done and a baby has suffered a traumatic brain injury. Now, the first one is going to be that that you have a situation in which mom shows up to the hospital, pretty much had an uneventful pregnancy, went to all her appointments. There were no issues with everything, got to the hospital. They hooked mom up and with some machines and all this other stuff. And off we go with everything. Now, when they were hooking you up and as you were going through that, more than likely you were being attached to a device called the electronic fetal heart monitor. And that is extremely important. What the electronic fetal heart monitor does is it allows medical professionals in real time to be able to see how well essentially your baby is tolerating a vaginal delivery. So this monitor is looking at a lot of things. It's looking at mom, it's looking at your contraction pattern, the strength of your contractions. It's looking at variability, it's looking at the baby's heart rate. It's looking at certain types of patterns, whether there are acceleration patterns, whether there are deceleration patterns, whether the baby's heart rate is too high, whether the baby's heart rate is too low. All of these things mean something as you progress during labor and delivery. And medical professionals, they understand how to read their readings on the electronic fetal heart monitor. Based on some of the readings that they see on the monitor, that will then dictate some actions that they take. So let's say, for example, in our hypothetical, early on in labor, everything is going good. The baseline's looking good. Heart rate is in a good area. You have some acceleration patterns that are there, and everything looks to be okay. It is clearly a category 1 strip. And let's say as labor progresses, now we're starting to move through and things are beginning to change a little bit. That category 1 strip now moves into category 2. The nurses or the midwife or whoever's in, they're beginning to talk to the doctor about what's happening. There's been a little bit of a change on the strips. The doctor is aware of everything, and certain types of actions are being taken because this is now a category 2 strip. Let's move on a little bit further. Let's say now the strip has now moved from a category 2 to a category 3 strip. So the strip has went from 1 and now it's moving down to category 3. Category 3 is generally, there are some issues here, okay? And let's say, for example, in our hypothetical, maybe we have some prolonged decels, maybe we have minimal variability, maybe there is bradycardia that's present. In other words, the strip has went from good to pretty much bad. I'm using simple terms. And based on what the doctors and the medical professionals, what they see, they now make a decision that an emergency C-section has to happen. Well, when you kind of think back and you kind of jump back and look at it, that C-section had to occur because something happened during labor and delivery that gave the doctors and the medical professionals serious concerns as to not only mom's well-being, but the baby's well-being, okay? And so I hope you can see that if an emergency C-section had to occur, then something triggered the emergency C-section or triggered the C-section to happen. That is the first example that we can see. Number 2 is going to be, let's say, for example, mom, you're home, your water breaks, and you're having some issues. Maybe a few days earlier, you had decreased fetal movement. There were some problems that were going on. You rush to the hospital, you get to the hospital, they hook you up on everything, and they see problems on electronic fetal heart monitor. Maybe as soon as they put you on, it's minimal variability, or there are late decelerations or prolonged decels. cells. In other words, there are problems on the strip. And then a decision is being made now. We need to go ahead and take this baby. An emergency C-section needs to be scheduled, and we need to be able to try to get the baby out because there are problems that are occurring. Those are the two situations in which generally we will see in which a C-section is being involved. Either one, it's going to be during a normal labor and delivery, and that labor and delivery then becomes problematic, and an emergency C-section has to happen. Or number two, mom comes in with some concerns, and then based on those concerns, baby is hooked up on the monitor. Monitor is problematic, and emergency C-section is done. Now, in that first example that we're talking about, from a medical legal standpoint, remember I said that everything started off normal. There were not really any problems with everything. In these examples, this is why from a medical legal standpoint, we really have to pay attention, because as I said in that first example, remember we went from a category 1 strip to a category 2 strip down to a category 3 strip. What we're looking at is what was happening. The electronic fetal heart monitor was putting the doctors and the medical professionals on notice that there were problems occurring during this labor and delivery. So one of the issues is going to be when a C-section is done, especially when it was from when everything seemed to be pretty normal or category 1 starting off, was there a delay in the C-section? In other words, should the medical professionals, based on what they saw, during the process, should they have moved faster in removing the baby? That is going to be a critical issue when a C-section is performed and a baby does have a traumatic brain injury, especially in that first example. Now, in that second example, when mom is already voicing concerns that happen outside of the hospital and she's getting to the hospital, they hook mom up, they see some problems, and they move quickly to have the emergency C-section. That's gonna be a different analysis there with that. But that first example as to the delay, was there a delay in moving to the C-section? That's something that a birth injury attorney like myself, that is something that we're going to look at. Because if there was a delay, in other words, if the baby should have been taken earlier, well earlier in time, then that is something that we really have to look at and really see as to whether the standard of care there was a deviation from the standard of care, which is what caused this baby to suffer a traumatic brain injury. Now, this was definitely one of my longer videos, but this question as to C-sections and a baby having a traumatic brain injury, an HIE injury, I'm trying to tie it all together and try to give you an idea as to how we look at these issues and how we analyze these issues when they come up and families call us because they have questions as to how did this happen? What caused this? Was it something the doctors and the nurses did? In other words, did they delay moving to the delay getting to the C-section? Or was this something that already had happened before the doctors and the nurses got involved? If you have more questions for me, maybe you're watching this video today because your baby has had a traumatic brain injury, an HIE injury. You have questions as to the cause of this injury. If that's you, what I invite you to do is go ahead and get your phone. There's a telephone number down below. Get your cell phone, give me a call. Call my office. Schedule an appointment so we can talk with you. It's important that for you to get answers, especially if you have questions as to what caused this issue. When you talk with my office, make sure you leave them not a good phone number, but a good cell phone number, because sometimes we have to reach you through, not only just a good phone number, a cell phone number, but a good email account, a good email address, because sometimes we have to reach out to you on email. And make sure you pick a date and a time to be able to get on our calendar. One more thing before I get out of here. I practice law here in the state of Maryland, and I know from time to time I'll have individuals who will contact me. They are not in Maryland. They are in the United States, but they are not in Maryland. If that's you, just understand that we have to use what we call co-counsel or local counsel. In other words, an attorney in your state. And that's something we can look to work and help you with. But I just want to make sure that you understand that co-counsel, that local counsel aspect of things, if you are not here in the state of Maryland. All right, that's going to be it for today's longer educational video. Again, I'm Marcus Boston, and I'm one of the birth injury and medical malpractice attorneys practicing law here in the state of Maryland at Boston Law Group, LLC. We'll talk with you next time. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.